Today we are going to do some more work on finding equivalent fractions. Remember on page 143, you had a fraction and you had to find an equivalent fraction by either multiplying or dividing. Remember that you can multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. For instance, one of the problems you did on page 143 is number 20, said 4/6 equals how many twelfths? And you ask yourself, 6 times what equals 12? Well, 6 times 2. So that means I have to do 4 times 2. And 4 times 2 equals 8. So 4/6 and 8/12 are equivalent fractions. Because remember, 2 halves is 1 whole. And any time I multiply a number by 1, I get the same number. Well, on page 144, you're asked to find some more equivalent fractions. And on the top 3, they give you a fraction and then either the numerator or the denominator, in this case all denominators, and you have to fill in the missing numerator. But then in the next part, it asks you to write 2 equivalent fractions for the given fraction, but it doesn't tell you what numerator or denominator to use. So I'm going to do a few of those with you. Let's look at number 4. This is on page 144. So on page 144, number 4 says 3/10, and you have to write 2 equivalent fractions. Well, remember, I can multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. So let's just start with the easy one. Multiply numerator and denominator by 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. 10 times 2 is 20. So 3/10 is equivalent to 6/20. But it asks me to write 2 equivalent fractions. So I can pick another number to multiply the numerator and denominator by. This time I'm going to do 5. Doesn't matter what number I multiply by as long as it's the same for numerator and denominator. 3 times 5 is 15. 10 times 5 is 50. Maybe you picked 3 to multiply numerator and denominator by. That would be fine, as long as you multiply numerator and denominator by the same number. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 times 3 is 30. So 3/10 is equivalent to 9/30. That's number 4. Let's do another one. Let's do number 5. Number 5 is 1/3. And you have to write 2 equivalent fractions. So I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 4. As long as I multiply numerator and denominator by the same thing, I get an equivalent fraction. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So 4/12 is an equivalent fraction. Now I'm going to take my same fraction, 1/3, and I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 10. Remember, 10/10 equals 1, so I will get an equivalent fraction. 1 times 10 is 10. 3 times 10 is 30. So 10/30 is an equivalent fraction for 1/3. Now let's look at number 11. Remember, I can get an equivalent fraction by multiplying or dividing the numerator and denominator by the same number. Well, if I look at 15/30, I know that both of those numbers are divisible by 5. So instead of multiplying, I'm going to divide. 15 divided by 5 and 30 divided by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So 3/6 is an equivalent fraction to 15/30. Okay, I can do it a different way. I can divide both numerator and denominator by 3. Because 15 and 30 are both divisible by 3. 15 divided by 3 equals 5, and 30 divided by 3 equals 10. Okay, so that's number 11. All right, I'll do one more of those with you from that middle section. Let's take 6/54, which is number 12. Okay, we're going to do it, we're going to multiply one time, and we're going to divide. First, I'm going to multiply. I can multiply my numerator and my denominator by any number, as long as it's the same number. I'm going to pick 2. 6 times 2 is 12, and 54 times 2 is 108. So 6/54 is equivalent to 12 100/8. Now I'm going to get an equivalent fraction by dividing the numerator and denominator by the same number. I know these are both even numbers, so I can divide both of them by 2. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 54 divided by 2 equals 27. So 6/54 is equivalent to 3/27.